Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending another show of the Growth Hour. Tonight's topic will be: Are your children a liability or a blessing? Before we get into that, I want to make a few announcements. Next weekend at Mall of Prince George's, at in Prince George's County, Maryland, the Reinvention Center, Cell Mississippi, Breaking Silence. Other organizations are I don't have the flyer from Cherie. Can you please chime in the organization that BU Travels and what else?
Yes. So BU Travel Pros, the Reinvention Center, Sail with Sippy, A to Z, Title Company, and ZTS Philo affiliates.
Are hosting a back to school backpack giveaway at Prince George's Mall. Again, it will be at the hours of 12 to 2. All supplies will be given out. It will be going on to 12 to 2 or until supplies are depleted. So do make your way out there. There will be some registration. So as far as who we're giving the backpacks to, children must be accompanied by an adult, or they will not receive a backpack. Children must be with an adult to get a backpack. So let me say that again. Adults, you cannot come by yourself and say, I have 5 children, I need 5 backpacks. You must bring your children with you in order to receive the blessing that is being given by a group of people, not only the Reinvention Center, the group of people and others that have contributed to this. Aisha Robinson, Sandra McClure, Alvaro Martinez, Bria West, Lamar Burgess. I want to thank all of you 5 guys for making donations and contributions to this cause. We definitely appreciate what you do, and we are still soliciting donations amongst other organizations. And again, the 5 organizations that we have mentioned, I just want to name the 5 individual people that are not part of the organization that have contributed, but we are still looking for donations, soliciting donations to be able to buy more supplies for the community. It is my position that we want our communities to be better. So we have to contribute to making the community better. We can't look out the window and say, hey, I'm tired of this, I'm tired of that, if we're not contributing to change. I'm not asking you to go out there and put your life on the line. I'm saying, hey, donate $5, $10, $30, whatever you can donate to the life of, saving a life or giving a child the tools they need to go and learn some different options. The second event that we will be having is in New York on November the 4th. For y'all that are in New York, we will be hosting a premiere or a screening of the documentary, The 13th Amendment. And then we will have some panelists. You will get more information as this develops. So please stay tuned to that. And we will meaning information, how to purchase tickets, where is it going to be at, amongst other information. We do have some, so I'm going to allow Aisha to give you what we do have. Ms. Robinson, thank you.
Oh, good evening, everyone. So the event is going to be at the Julius and Joycetta Pierce African American History Museum in Hempstead, New York. This is Hempstead, New York. The Julius and Joycetta Pierce African American History Museum. The date is going to be Saturday, November the 4th. The hours of the event are from 12 p.m., so starting sharply at noon until 4 p.m. This event will feature, like Mr. Jones said, a screening of the documentary, The 13th, followed by a panel discussion. So that's where we are right now, and looking forward, excited to November 4th.
Thank you. Again, as we get more developed, this event developed, we will be passing more information for you. We definitely want you to know as soon as possible so you can make provisions. We do know tickets for this event will be $15. We also will be accepting large block purchases of people who may want to purchase the ticket, can't attend, but we'll be willing to donate the ticket to a college student is someone of age to be able to come and watch and get educated from this event. With that being said, we want to go into the actual topic: are kids blessings or a liability? Now, to be honest with you, I'm going to be 100% straight with you. I'm going to get the politically correct answer all night. Everybody's going to say their child is a blessing. And I'm not saying they're not blessings. I'm just telling you what I feel like it's about to happen. Everybody's going to get up here and say that their child is a blessing. And I agree. Children are blessings, not adult children. Children are blessings, not adults. But the reality is, let's be honest with ourselves. Let's be honest with the panelists. Let's be honest about what we experience and say, hey, I have thought about this liability. I said, man, this joker here can show eat, or man, this joker show is growing fast. If we let's, all I'm asking is, we all know we love our children, and we're gonna take care of our children. But let's, be honest with ourselves and say, hey, and so we can get some information and recognize that you are not the only one that may possibly have these thoughts. I have a friend that has a graphic designer business where he makes t-shirts and other clothing. And he makes shirts where it says F them kids. And I'm not going to use the whole word, and we know he loves his kids because he's a single father. But he says F them kids. At times he gets mad and want to pull his hair out. Kids tend to do that. Adults do it. So we know kids are definitely going to do it. Of course I'm okay. But at the end of the day, I wanted to say, hey, we're gonna keep it real with one another, and we're gonna move forward with this topic. So are kids a blessing or a liability? Who would like to go first? Please don't make me point you out, because I will point you out. So okay, we got Shakim up here. Thank you, brother, for saving the women, because I was going, and saving everybody. Go ahead, brother.
Don't say the women.
Save the people. I was gonna say women and men. Save the people. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I think when it comes to seeing your children are a blessing or a liability, it's also based on how you view things. If you see it from a systematic governmental perspective, of course you're gonna see it as a liability. But if you come from your religious, if you come from like a religious system or a spiritual sense, you're gonna see the blessing in the children. Because me personally, I see my children as a blessing, regardless of how hard the hardship. The only reason it's hard because of the government. Ain't no government gonna make me go against my value principle and see the badness of anything, So if my children gonna kill me, however, whether I gotta work 3 or 4 jobs and not make ends meet, I'm gonna die for that, because I took responsibility to do whatever to make them. So that's just me personally. Ain't no government, none of that gonna have me defeated, or none of that. I'm with nature. So that's my perspective.
That's your perspective. You're not your children are a blessing, and you work 3, 4 jobs to get your children. My first question. How old are your children, sir?
Range from 7 to 17.
Okay, so they're minors. So we can classify them as children. So I understand what you're saying, and we know that even though we are responsible for those children, how about, I want both sides. I don't just want the adolescent children side of it. I want the adult side as well. They're still your children regardless of how old they are, or how grown they get, so they're still your children. So I want both sides. Appreciate your sharing that aspect of it. But now give me, and I don't want you to give it to me because you don't have those children. But for the ones that have adult children, they're still adults, and they're always going to be our children. This is why I use the term adult children. How do they view it? You want to stab at that, or you want me to move on to someone else that can?
I've been in relationships with grown kids. I've been in relationships with grown kids because it's not only the responsibility, but also the time you got to take in order to develop. So the self-development, you're going to go through a lot of it can take a toll on your mental health, and just dealing with the patients. And, everyone has a weakness. So you dealing with a child that could read better than they could count, and then they could count better than they could read. There's some children that's callous. That's a lot there. But when it comes to the responsibility of the adult children, them not taking responsibility, because when they become adults, they feel like they're smarter than the parents. Like, oh nah, I'm not gonna feel like mom and daddy. I'm smarter. I'm not gonna go through that. But when you in the fire, they complaining, they're not taking forth effort, and always thinking they got the cheat code as an adult, but they coming back to you. You don't want to take my advice as an adult, but you want to go out there and crash out and want me to save you from the crash and save me all the trash. So I understand the adult too, over opinionated at 18, 19, and 20. Is that clear?
Yes, very clear. I want to say this to you. I've said this, and I want to put this out there so we can build a foundation for this conversation. I have a daughter that's 32 years old, and when she was a child, it never crossed my mind that she was a liability. Never crossed my mind. I never thought that, don't feel that way or any of that. And I'm not saying that she was, looking back hindsight. She was never a liability. But when you become an adult and you start making your own decisions and you have your own household and you're bringing something that I'm trying to avoid to me because you're my child, that's something different. So that being said, I want to say that yes, I have a grown child and I have grandchildren, young grandchildren, and they're never a liability. I'll do anything in the world for my grandchildren. But let me put the brakes on. I'm not going to do anything in the world for my grown child. So that's just me. I'm not asking everybody to do what I do. Does that mean I'm not going to nurture my child? I'm not going to be there for them, even if they're grown. Does that mean I'm not going to, if they need some help them? Nah, not at all. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying a child, an adolescent, gets far more from me than an adult. Kevin Hayes. Okay, you okay? Sasha Manty.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, excellent. So, great topic as usual. So I want to say that I share this thought. I'm sorry, give me one.
Aisha, you want to talk? Well, go ahead, Sasha. She's back. Go ahead, Sasha.
So, my brother and I share the same view. And so I'm going to provide you what his insight was and continue on that.
Okay, stop. First, what view do you share? What is the view?
The view is that the children are not the liabilities, it's the parents that are liabilities.
Okay, go ahead.
So now, as Genesis says, be fruitful and multiply. The children are the blessing. Now, what happens is that when the parents are in existence, the resourcefulness, the resources, the things that they need to do to be able to then cultivate that blessing is lacking, then the liability is actually the parents, not the child, because the child is birthed in the blessing's existence. The parent is the responsible entity that's supposed to be liable, responsible, accountable for having the environment needed for that blessing. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying but that's the reality of it. So that's where we see our view on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Aisha, you seem like you might have muted yourself, so let me sit back and get ready to hear this one here. Go ahead, Aisha.
Well, I'll preface this by saying I have one son. He is 24 years old. So I understand what you're saying about adolescent children, and then adult children having gone through the phases and, the different ways of parenting. I understand where this topic originates. I can relate. What I will say is to whom much is given, much is required, right? My son is probably both, very strongly, both, definitely a blessing, in the sense that I mean, children are a blessing. He's definitely changed my life for the better. Um, Encouraged me even from adolescent child and still today as a 24-year-old young man. I find strength in him. I find encouragement. I find a sense of pride. You know, when I think about liability, assets versus liability, he's not a piece of property, but probably one of my largest assets. The best title that I've ever carried was mom, and especially Drew's mom. My son played sports throughout his years, and so we would always have like the team shirts, and so the back of my shirt always said Drew's mom 7. And that is probably one of like my biggest assets. Just being able to be his mom. So it is truly a blessing. But with every blessing, like I said, much responsibility comes along with it. And so I am an insurance professional. And so when I think about the terminology liability, right? Yes, I've paid lots of liability claims due to my son. um, even as a young child, swinging baseballs and baseball bats and breaking people's windshields and that is what we consider to be a liability, right? Like you said, those things boil down to something monetary. And I think a huge part of someone's perspective or outlook really just depends or is driven on who you're raising, how you're raising these children. Will they be a blessing or will they be a liability? You know, we have to put a lot of thought into how we're training our children up and what that return on your investment is going to look like. So yes, liability, absolutely. I'm liable for any and everything that he does. Even still right now at 24 years old, there's going to be some connection. There's some way that I'm going to be liable, pay a price, so to speak, but he is my greatest blessing. That's what I have for you. Short and sweet.
Okay.
That was short though, right?
So far, we're correct me if I'm wrong. I've heard
We're
people
still
say,
blessings.
okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. They're blessings based, and I ain't gonna say they're blessings automatically, straight out the gate. They don't have to do anything to be a blessing. We're gonna start off with that. However, to be a continual blessing and not being felt like that their liabilities is based on their upbringing and their direction and their tutorage and their teachings from the parents.
Absolutely. What you pour into them is what you get out, right? Like what you put, just anything else, what you put in, this is what you get back. And not to say, every parent is responsible for a child that goes astray or goes wrong, or, not extreme, but of course, this is what correction is, redirection. Yeah, a lot of it is what you put into them. Raise people that you like.
All right. I want you to know I wasn't always like him. I wasn't always like him. And as
You
we
are
know,
always likable.
absolutely. And, I wasn't always like, well, I'm sure my parents didn't like the fact that I went to prison. I don't think that they liked a lot of decisions I made. However, the things you see me doing now is a result of what they taught me. That's the foundation they instilled in me.
And again, like I said, if they go off track, they have something. If you've instilled something in them, they have something to course correct and come back.
All of the bad decisions I made was not a product of my parents' teachings. That was a product of me being curious and wanting to go try things on my own and jump off the path that my parents had taught me, and go on the path that I thought was more glamorous and seeing other people doing. So that is what caused me to make the decisions I make. So by no means were the decisions to do the things I done that landed me in prison a teachings of my household. When I say household, I'm not limited to my father and my mother. You know, I'm taking it to aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody that contributed to teaching me something that was constructive. That being said, let's move on over to my favorite too, Manny and Sasha.
Hey, I forgot to answer that question. If you have an adult child in that sense. Um, so here's the thing. I look forward. I don't have an adult child yet, but guess what? I'm looking forward to having the right accounting to reflect anything that they need when they call me up and say, Mom, I got this great idea for a business. This is the research on it. This is how much I need to help out. I got this amount. I got you, son. I got you, girl. I want to be able to be the person that they call if God forbid the cop call and they think, oh, they got one. No, you don't. Because they got a trust fund and they got me. So they ain't getting, you ain't getting mine. I want to be the one that when they say, oh, listen, I want to check out this event or this sports thing. Can I get money? Sure, you can get money. I'm gonna get a suit too, and we're gonna join you. Something. The point is a support. Money shall never dictate to me how I'm going to define the blessing I have in my life. So I'm going to make sure I'm prepared to make sure that he has the resources at any age. I want to be up in my 80s and he still calls me or she still calls me and say, hey, what up? What you doing? I'm covering you for dinner. Or aren't you covering me this time? We got each other. That's a relationship that is going to be grand. You want to have as much of the positive frequency to feed into that child and nothing will limit. So no money, no nothing will define how much fun I'm going to have when they're older. Because I work my tail off when they're young to have that enjoyment when they get older, to learn their personality, to get into what they like, and to join them in that opportunity at my age, at the age I will be at that time, and tell them about my experiences when they reach that age too. So no, they're not a liability still. I'm going to be liable if I don't have the proper resources and environment to give to the children when they get older.
Well said.
Enough said. That what the brother said. Enough said. Y'all hear that in the background?
That's right.
That was
That's
somebody
right.
else.
Okay. That's a good answer. Good answer. Now let me give you a better answer. First and foremost, let me say that you have been nominated as the mom of the Ghost Hour. So, Mom, I have a business I would like to start, so I need some funding. You know, I want you. We'll get to. I'll put in the chat how much funding I need, Mom, Sasha, and we'll get back with you. Now, let me say this. I've heard you say that you work yourself off. You know, this is a possible way of how they become thoughts of being a liability by us. I've heard you say that you're going to work your butt off to do whatever you got to do to make sure that they have whatever they need whenever they need to call on you. That's part of the problem. You know, if there's no balance, let me say it that way. It's not absolute problem. If there's no balance, and I'm sure you can balance it, Sasha. You got another half over there that's going to help you balance. Going to push you back up when you get to leaning too far to the left. But there's no balance. Then what's happening is we fall into the cycle of the TVs, the games, the friends, and all that raising the kids because we're at work. And we don't want that to happen. So, you know, I'm only saying that for cautious purposes, that we be cautious of that balance. Because again, you know, we all want to give our children something that leave something to our children and make sure they're okay. Kevin Hayes, I see your hands up, and I'm going to give this one more thing, and then I'm going to let you talk. I've learned this, and I've been discussing this for the last week. Car insurance, you have to have that before you can drive a car off the lot. Health insurance, you must have that, or they're going to penalize you at the end of the year. But life insurance is not something that's enforced and taught that we must have. But guess what? I think that it may be the most important one of the most important, if not the most important one out of all the insurances, life insurance. And that is how a lot of generational wealth is passed on to their youth through life insurance. You know, so I'm saying that we have to make sure that they have what we need. We can buy, and hey, I'm glad to be able to bring this up. I have this financial advisor great young man. You know, DeAndrew Robinson is his name. Y'all might know him, famous young guy. And you know, he has enlightened me to different types of insurance where I can pay into it now, cash value. And if I need something, I can take out of it. So it's not like that you have to wait until you pass in order to do what you need to do. So it accomplishes Sasha's goal of if they want to open up a business, it's there, but it still has that protection to be able to pass on that generational wealth. As you heard Ms. Robinson say, and I'm telling you that, you know, a guy that she knows, Drew Robinson, I call him Drew for short, Drew, can assist you in finding the appropriate insurance that you need. And I definitely recommend him. Now, let me move on to Kevin Hayes. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I ain't gonna give the cushy answers y'all give. Yes, the kids is a liability, and they can be a liability. They can be a blessing. They can be a liability. I have kids that's on. Most of my kids is almost 40s, and all of my babies is 30 and up. And yes, they can be a liability. That's a real answer. So they're not walking around in Pampers. They grown. They whole grown people. So I'm not. And some of them I want to choke the hell out. So I'm not gonna get up here and give no soft mushy cushy answer. Now, as my mom used to always say, it starts at home and it scatters abroad. But there's certain kids you're just not gonna be able to do nothing for. There's like case in point, like my sister. But that's another situation. So do I love them? Yeah, I love my kids. But are they liabilities? Yeah. When I was running the street, kept my mother coming back and forth to school. She had to miss days out of work. She loved me. There was no question about that. But was I a liability? Yeah. And for me to get up here and say that I was a blessing at that time, I was a hell's angel. So that's not it's let's be real, y'all. It's like I told you, Mr. Jones, about the situation I got home and I wouldn't drive. So when I first get home, I wouldn't drive, right? And because I wasn't trying to get no traffic ticket. So my grandfather, why don't you drive, grandfather? I said, I just don't drive. So my daughter says, oh, grandfather's a punk. He can drive, but he don't know how to drive. So I mean, but these are my babies. I mean, I love them, but the kids grow. The same little cute little tookish you have grows up to be a grown woman, a grown man. I mean, it was just last year I walked my daughter down the aisle. So I mean, so I'm not gonna say it's a complete blessing. I'm not gonna say it's a complete liability. At the same token, it starts at home and scatters abroad, and how you raise your kid will be pretty much a reflection of how they is sometimes. Because we all saying stuff that's cushy on the inside, but when them kids step out there in that world, it's a whole new world. We have a whole bunch of, I don't care how strong you is on the inside. When they step out there on that outside, it's a whole new world. It's a whole new experience. It's a whole bunch of people that's pulling them in 1,000 different directions. This is everything that I haven't heard no one really take into account. So no one can really say that this is how it's going to be, or no one can really say that the child isn't a liability or the child is truly a blessing. All you can do is like anything. You teach your child, you raise the child the best you can, and you sit them out to world with the hopes and expectations that they're going to do right and that they'll make it. And that's real. I mean, I'm blessed. Most of my kids have great jobs, and most all my girls finish college, but some of them I do want to choke out, especially the girls, but to the boys too. But it's just because I got quite a few kids. But what I'm saying is, it depends on the time when they're adults, because when your kids start really branching, getting older, and they really start branching out on their own. Just think about y'all when y'all was grown ups. I mean, for the people who didn't spend 20, 10, 20, 30 years in jail, think about how it was with you and your parents when y'all was growing up, and be honest with yourself. Were you a liability, or was you that blessing? So that's what I wanted to put out there.
Thank you for giving us examples of a liability, and a blessing. You know, I appreciate your candidness and your honesty and amongst other things. And I definitely would say when I was in prison, I definitely was not a blessing. I was a blessing, don't misunderstand me, but I was an embarrassing blessing. Let me say it that way. And this is why, you know, a lot of parents who love their children with all of their everything in them, every drop in their body, but they say there instead of saying, "Hey, they're in jail," they said, "Hey, they're in college or whatever, they're at school or whatever the case may be." Moving right along, we're going to go to Cherie. Interesting to hear what this young lady here has to say. Go ahead, Miss Cherie.
So, you know, James, I'm gonna give you the mom, the cushy version.
Oh man, here we
Of
go with
course
this,
they're
man.
blessings,
Oh
right?
man,
No, of course they're blessings, right? But
you
I
gonna
put the
save the baby. You gonna
no,
save the
no,
baby.
I put the definitions up because, of course, me, I'm going to Google everything. So yes, by definition, of course, they're liability because when they're coming into this world, as parents, we take that accountability, we take the responsibility for them. So yes, all of those words synonymous with liabilities, yes, we take on that responsibility. So yes, was I a blessing when I was born? Yes, I was a blessing, but I was also a liability as a child, right? When you go to school, when you send your kids to school, when they're getting ready to go on a trip, what do? You sign a slip to say, I'm not going to hold the school responsibility. Why? Because they are a liability. Yes, children are a liability, but it's in context, right? Yes, we have responsibility for them. Yes, they cost money. We have a new term for liability these days, right? We call it our little broke best friends. And I have two of them. One is 14 and one is 27. But I look at it as full circle also, James, because when we get older, yes, I have been a blessing to them as a parent, but when I get a certain age or I become ill, guess what I'm going to become to them? I'm going to become a liability because they're going to have those same responsibilities and have to take on that ownership for things and for me as a person that I did for them. So it's a full circle thing. The way I look at it, I think it's the way you use it in context. You know, some people don't think about what they're saying to children before they say it. So when you're using those negative words to a child, you know, and some of them are actually on this definition when you look it up. If you're saying that they're a burden, you know, that they're a hindrance, they're stopping you from living your life, then yes, that's a different context of a liability. But I'm gonna play devil advocate here because you said kids, you didn't say just necessarily our own kids, right? So yes, we know that kids are a blessing, but yes, when we talk about some of the youth and some of our at-risk youth, the first thing that happens when we see the carjackings and the UUVs and the robberies, and we say, guess what?
Those are blessings.
Nope. We say we need to hold the parents what? Accountable for their liability, not accountable for their blessings, right?
Okay, let me say this to you. Let me break this down because I'm here tonight with y'all tonight. You're saying that your children are blessings and you have responsibility to the 27-year-old and the 14-year-old. And things will go in full circle. At some point, they're going to end up taking care of you when you get older. And like you took care of them. Did I hear that right? Am I quoting that
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go with the I part. Let's go. Yes, that's how you feel. You're entitled to feel the way you feel. How you know that's the way this grown adult that's 27 is going to feel in 8 more years when they get 35 that they're going to take care of you? How do you know that?
Because it's the way you treat them growing up as not being, as you say, right, the blessing and not the liability, but it shows in the way they are groomed and how you treat
So that
your
guarantees. So you're saying the way you raise your kid guarantees that they're going to do the right thing when they get older.
nothing is guaranteed.
Okay, so there's nothing that say there's something that says you're supposed to take care of that child, right?
Yes.
not an adult, the children up until 18
Mhm.
or 20, whatever, however it goes. We know the rule. Where is it that says that the child must take care of you when you get older?
Anybody want to answer that? If you
No, I
want
want
to,
you to answer that.
take
I
it
want you to
there.
answer that. I want you to
No,
answer
I'm
that.
saying where else
And
would
I'm
it
going to
say?
help you out.
That's
And I'm
that's
going
a
to help
part.
you out.
That's a part of the honor, right? If we
Honor
want to
your
go
parents.
there, that's a part of the honoring your mother and your father. Yes, when it
Okay.
gets to that age,
Okay.
that's what you will be doing.
Okay. I'm glad you quoted the Bible. So let's go to the Bible.
That's in the
It
Quran
says,
too. That's in the Quran too.
okay, let's go to the Quran and the Bible. It says
Okay.
that a man that finds a wife finds a good thing, and woman, honor your husband because your kids will grow old and eventually leave you. I'm paraphrasing,
Okay.
but it said the kids will grow older, find their life, and leave you. So in that part of the Quran and the Bible, where does it say that the kids are obligated to take care of the parent? If the Bible even tells you that the mother and the husband and wife should honor each other because y'all are who are supposed to take care of each other. Marriage vows, through death, through sick and health, through death, till death do us apart. It has in everything I've seen, and I'm going to get you to tell me what you've seen so I can be on the same page you on. It says that the husband's responsibility or the wife's responsibility is to take care of each other, not the kids.
Mr. Jones.
Okay.
Train up a child. That's
But
all I'm saying.
Okay.
Go
Here
ahead.
we go. Here we go.
One at a time.
Okay.
One at a time. We got a lot of hands up.
Because you try to throw her off like it was a chronological order to those commandments. It's
Which
not.
ones? Which ones?
When she said honor thy mother and father, and you brought up that it's between the covenant is between the husband and the wife, but that foundation, honor thy mother and father, that's where it is. And I'll keep looking because
Okay,
I'm
I think
sure.
that's for adolescents. That's not for adult children.
Hold on.
Why?
That's where your whole
Why
life.
isn't it?
Let me.
Adult people too.
Excuse
Let me.
me.
Oh. I apologize. I can be wrong. A child is a child all their life.
All their life.
So that means that they have to honor and respect their parent all their life. That doesn't mean they take care of the child. That's just my opinion. Now keep looking for me. I'm waiting on this. Kevin Hayes, Sasha,
Okay,
and then
listen.
Shaquem.
You said take care of the child or take care of the parent, James?
Take care of the parent. Take care of the parent.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you before you go to the next person, I'm gonna give you an example. How many times have you walked into a McDonald's or any type of fast food place, a Walmart, and you seen somebody old enough in there to be your great grandparents, and the first thing you say is their kids need to be shot? Everybody says it. Everybody has had that instance where you go somewhere and you see someone that's an elder that's struggling, that's working, doing some type of fast food or mediocre job, and you see that they're tired and that they're broken, but you can tell that they need the money. And the first thing people say, because I hear it, is their children ain't
Okay. What if they
right?
don't have no children? First, we don't know if they have any children, but what if they don't have no children?
But somebody is responsible for doing what? Being a you're gonna keep making me going back there. Being a good neighbor, right?
I agree with that.
If
I
we
agree
really
with
want to
that.
take it full circle, right?
I agree with that. Guess what? Anywhere I go and I see a woman or older people, I try to look out for them. But that's the way I was raised. But that don't mean
There
I'm
you-
obligated. That don't mean I'm obligated to do it though. Because you got some people, and I'm sure you've seen this before, that you try to help and they don't want your help.
Right. They're very independent and stubborn.
Okay.
I-
So
I see you being that way, Mr. Jones. I'm just
I
gonna
get
put
you,
it
I
out
get
there.
you, I get you. I'll open your door for you if you need me though. Just know that. Just know I'll open your door for you if you need me. If you need me
Okay.
to open the door. And you short 10 cents, I'm gonna give it to you. 15, I might not. But 10 cents, you all in, I got you. But no, I don't think that I'm not gonna even go with what I think. I'll do that last. Go ahead, Mr. Hayes. Are you finished, Cherie?
Yeah,
For
yeah.
now? Okay, go ahead,
Yeah.
Kev.
Okay. Now, I'm gonna go find the verse, but I know, but it's in the Quran. It says, "You shall honor your mother, respect them, and honor your mother and father, and take care of them, because they took care of you when you take care of them at their feeble age. because they raised and took care of you when you was a child. And there's examples, Islamic examples out of it. When the prophet's mother, after his real mother passed away, his stepmother raised him. And she was old. She got real old, like 70, 80 years old. And when her husband died, he moved her back in the house with him and his first wife, Khadijah. And that was the verse where you don't let your elderly parents just die off and sit by the wayside. You honor them. And because what we are taught Islamically is that heaven lies at the foot of your mother. So if you want to enter paradise, if you honor that woman, both of your parents, but especially that mother. Now I don't know where it's taught anywhere else, but this is how we're taught. This is how my mother raised us, and she was a Christian. But
Okay.
that's where we're at with them.
Okay. So I want, I'm playing devil's advocate here. All right. That's what I'm doing, playing devil's advocate. I'm gonna give you my perspective of how I view it later on at the end of the show, before we wrap up. But I'm gonna say that one thing that you stated was her husband died. And then the son brought him back into his house. I think that as we have all agreed, I think we can all say we agree on this, that how you're raised determines what you do. That being the case, how you're raised by your parents determines, go ahead.
No, because when I was in prison, my mother used to cry to me on the phone and ask me when I was coming home.
Mm-hmm.
All of us had the same parent, has the same parents, but she was being done wrong when I was in prison, and she used to always ask me, Kevin, that was the most, that was the most crushing feeling her at that age, and saying she regret the time and energy. And she had no idea that the kids she had raised and helped raise would be the way that they are. So we can't really say that, because everybody can pour their best. This is why I said what I said earlier. When they get out in them streets and everything is pulling them in 1,000 different directions, and they experiment and they doing this and doing that, no one can truly say, well, it was your upbringing and you're going to revert back to it. My mother never did no drugs. My mother stopped smoking, took pork and everything out the house. She hardworking woman. I mean, embedded good qualities in all of us. But I got a sister that's a piece of crap and a brother that's a crackhead. There was no drugs in the house. So, I mean, all we can do is pray. We groom them properly, let them grow, and all like a tree. People is like, I know it's like trees. You give them the water, you give them the sunlight, you watch the seeds sprout, the roots come, the roots turn into a bark, the bark turn into a tree, the tree get branches might bear some leaves, some fruit, and all you can pray is that through your loving and nurturing, that it grows to be a big, strong, healthy tree. Otherwise than that, it might turn into poison oak, or it might stump its growth and die off, or just stay short, stay small because just because. So no one can really say that the grooming of your upbringing is definite. It's a given that my child's going to be that way. You just can't. I mean, you just do the best that you can.
No. I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I want to clarify what you're saying, what we're saying, so we can get other people that had their hands up. No parent can guarantee what their child is going to do. They can't guarantee that. No parent can guarantee what their child is going to do. I think me and you can agree on that, because that's basically what you're saying. The parent cannot guarantee what the child can do. But what the parent can do is put the information, the foundation into the child, and then give the child options. That's what the parent is doing, giving them the right way. Now, if the child go and look at it and see something else and go a different way, that's on the child. But the parent did their job, which is giving them the right way. As I said before, my parents and them gave me the right way. You know, that my support circle gave me the right way. And that's why I'm able to come back on the path. It takes me back to the parable of the story. I forget the two brothers, the one that got his inheritance, one that squandered it, and eventually he came back to what he knew was good, which was the household, because the father had given him the right way. So he knows the right way, even though he chose to go somewhere else and live and did what he did. But when time got rough, he went back to the right way and he came home. I want you to explain that what you put on there in a minute. We're gonna discuss that in a minute, Aisha. But we have Sasha and then Shakim. I want to get to them because their hands been up for a while. Sasha, go ahead.
Okay, so there's a lot of things just covered. One thing that we always say is anchor. Anchor yourself to culture, anchor yourself to your religion, as far as specifically the families. Because what I find in this concept of liability and blessing is that this society, this worldly thing that we exist in, articulates and defines to you what is good or what is bad or what is positive, what is negative, what is a liability and what is a blessing. And so I know from my anchor comprehending what it's trying to define for me to negate it in the reality of what it actually is, because we come from a culture that signifies the village, which coincides with what you were talking about as far as the Bible scriptures, or what my brother Kevin was talking about in the Quran. It specifically addresses the man and the woman combining and moving on. But the thing is how do you expect your village to grow if it doesn't create these families? They must leave the household, not because they're leaving the household and that they are no longer to be a part of the huge family, but to expand and create further the extension of what they have learned in that anchored household, to then continue on with the generations to come. And when they do get older, the parents to come back and continue. Usually when they quote unquote leave the family, in the village concept, they got a house right next door, down the block, around the corner. They're all together. Our people are definitely separated. You have people in other states. You have people in other situations where they're not even in a village. They're by themselves. They have separated and created a family by themselves, individualistically, so to speak. So that in itself becomes a liability, because we come from a culture that is village minded, that is village in behavior. So no one starves. No one is, there is always a sitter. There is always an educational portion. There is always a program. There's always something. So that's why they're always a blessing, because they're always helpful. They're always, when I say work, I work my tail off. I work my tail off to be a better person, to be a mom for my child. That's the work I'm talking about versus the 9 to 5 or the project or the whatever. You know what I mean? I work my tail off to be a better person for that entity. So I won't be a liability to him or her. I will make that environment the best it can be. My mom taught me young in my block, you know, when you know everybody's name on your block, you know what I mean? You know, you know your neighbor, you know, down the block, you know, around the corner, all the people's names. And we had this, in this block, we had one white couple. Everybody else was melanated. And it's all one white old couple. Stuck around. And we used to check on them. Their children never checked on them. So we should check on them. I go sweep in front of their house, as I sweep in front of many of the parents' house on my block at that time. And I will check on them, I'll talk to them. And then you have other children and other neighbors checking on them. They were a part of that mini village there. Their children didn't come check on them. Their children didn't come and see. They got so old that the wife became an invalid. She was blind, she was in a wheelchair, and he had the older man taking care of her. The old man passed away before the wife, and we thought the wife was gonna go, right? But guess what? We took care of both of them while they were here. And so that's just a cultural anchor that we have. There's no such thing as not taking care of your mother and father, unless they came out of the anchored environment and were abusive, right? That's what Most High don't play. Are you going to be abusive to a child? You're going to get that same result in the sense of you're not going to be taken care of, just like you didn't take care of that child. You're going to be ignored. You're going to be abused, just like you did to that child. That's why they're a blessing and they're protected at all times.
That's right.
There are people, you know, they worry when they're pregnant and they have a child is coming. A father's, oh man, I got the girl pregnant. Where's this money going to come? Where these diapers are going to come from? Where is this going to come from? They don't know what they're going to do when that child is born. All of a sudden, you've got all the diapers, all the car seats, all the things that you need, because it's a blessing, because it's a part of that frequency, because you're opening up a universal law that says, be fruitful and multiply. When you do that, you're fruitful in your assets, you're fruitful in the monies that come, you're fruitful in the things that happen. The circumstances that come around where, like Sherry mentioned, a child that mess up cars and stuff like that. It's still, the child is not the liability. Back in the day, you mess up a car, guess what? You got a chance to fix the situation. Today, you mess up a car, you might get shot. So it's a different time. You don't get the knock on the wrist. You don't get a chance anymore. And we need to create that anchor, create that family back again. So that's why I say understand that when we say liability, it's a worldly concept.
That's right.
It is really a worldly concept versus the actual blessing, whatever religion you follow, that it actually is. That's all.
Thank you. Great point. I'm going to hold off on my comments today and move to Shakim. Shakim.
All right. First off, I just want to I'm just get a few things off my chest right quick. I think before we make these babies, however you make them, I don't know how you make them. Like you say that, you know, they're gonna be liability. If you feel like they're gonna be liabilities, what's the purpose of even making these children? We need to understand first, check yourself. Generally speaking, look in the mirror. You know what you ain't. You know your flaws. You know you're grimy. You know you're filthy. You have filthy thoughts. You're human. We all are. That's what humans are. You know what you are and you know what you aren't. You knew you were impulsive when you made them. You had sex, came from the club, whatever you did. You had a crush. You didn't want to use no protection. Oh, it slipped off. This, that, and the other. The woman said, don't do that. Don't do that. I'm just being clear. This situation that happened, don't quote unquote shoot up the club. You know, you're going to shoot up the club, this, that, and the other. Then these babies come out. Now you mad at the baby because they are what we were when we were younger, when we were developing. I don't understand, like, why, if that's the case, if you feel like the children are going to be liabilities, why don't we get snipped at 18, 19, don't make no babies? Then we say we pro-life, then we don't want to abort, then we have them. These children are humans. And I just want to understand, how are we making children? Did we just have a good night? Was it just a good night that just got out of hand and then you did what you did and you just hoping to God on a pearl and a wing that you don't get her pregnant or you don't get pregnant? Like, I just want to understand, like, how are we making the children? We got to check ourselves first before we go into that. You know that you wasn't ready for no child, whomever we are, but we just met a stranger, or you know you barely like the person who you with. You know what you don't like about them, but we still take forth of that. So we feel like they're liabilities while we performing or procreating.
You muted yourself.
Yeah, I'm asking, why are we procreating?
I don't think that nobody initially views their child as a blessing. I mean, as a liability. I don't think that we formally sit down and say, okay, if I have a child right now, it's going to be a liability. Some people do. Some people do. They say, hey, I'm not ready. They're honest with themselves, as I was saying in the beginning of the show, and say, hey, we cannot afford a child at this time, so let's not make no children. Let's hold off on making some children. Other people say, well, hey, my career is more important right now than a child, so I'm going to hold off on making a child. That happens, so for the ones that don't do that, I don't think that if they're not thinking about putting a condom on, they ain't thinking that far about whether the child is a liability. That's just my opinion. But go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand, okay, I know you say people have discussions, though we ain't gonna have, but let's be realistic. Most of these people on earth who were made were not planned, or even if you don't have intentions, you get caught up in the moment of having sex. It's not like, hey, let's sit down, we have a child, let's go through the genes, the medical backgrounds. No one's doing that. Many are not doing that. But if we feel like that we're not ready, why are we hopping in, like the sexual impulsiveness, not having the sexual discipline?
I think that oh my God, I've been put my head down and looking at Facebook up and then got slapped by 5 hands. We're gonna let start with Maurice since he's been quiet tonight. We're gonna let him answer your questions. Go ahead, Maurice.
Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm good. I'm good. How everybody doing?
All right.
Good evening.
There's been some real interesting responses, man. I think that nobody sets like so many of our panelists have said that nobody um looks at their children as a blessing or a liability. You know what I mean? Especially if he was born in a household full of love. And I think our forefathers and ancestors created it. First, I want to say this. We're the only culture, African Americans, that want to put their kids out when they get 18. Hispanics, you see, it'll be 21, it'll be 20 of them in a household until the male marry off, then he has to leave. If the woman marries, she's going to, 9 times out of 10, her husband is going to stay there. We're the only one in China. They don't let their kids leave until they're ready for marriage. You know what I mean? They control the next generation, or who their kid is going to be with. You know what I mean? They bet the whole family that their child is going to be with and spend the next who their child is going to procreate with. So we're the only culture that is so ready to put our kids out at 18. Hey, you're grown. Go find your own place. We're turning them out into this dog eat dog world, and then expect them to expect that we've given them enough to survive through all these hardships when the streets are constantly changing. With that being said, I think that nobody procreates with the intentions of leaving their children, whether it was a random. Most people want to be a good father, but they just haven't had in the last few generations because of undue circumstances around us in the Black community. With us going to jail faster than at a rate faster than any other population. Nobody. It's been a systematic design to destroy the Black family because the Black family is what brought us through Reconstruction, the Civil Rights Movement, and up into the 80s. It was the family that did that. So when the powers that be seen that the family was the power in the Black community, what did they do? They created the welfare system to try to destroy, to make the child a liability. So they used the child, made him a liability for the man and an asset for the woman, because the man couldn't live there, and they both survived. I was blessed, man. I'm my mother's and father's 20th child. I'm proud to say that because I never wanted for anything growing up. Out of 23, I'm number 20 of 23. You know what I mean? And so from 1947 until 1970, my mother and father had kids, and all of us are close. We just had a family reunion, man, where somebody came from every sibling's household even the ones who are gone, somebody came. I think we are missing the fact that even the best household, that even the parents that did the best for their kid, that sheltered them or anything, that's who the prison filled with. That's who 60% of the prison filled with kids who had everything and didn't want for anything, had an opportunity to go to college and everything, because they were so sheltered, and the family was trying to create access for them. And that child completely turned their back on his family and chose the street, like Kevin said, because there was so many things out in the streets, pulling at them. Most of the people who are really successful in this world had to at one time struggle to get to the next level. They had to watch their mom or dad struggle just to get to the next level. So that drove us harder. So those parents put that driving force into their children. You know what I mean? And so because liability asset is in the eye of the beholder. You know what I mean? Liability and a blessing is in the eye of the beholder, because what some people see as a liability, and I don't think your parents ever saw you as a liability, Jane. Maybe because because even everything that you've done, I know that you took care of them, like I did my family and my mom.
I'm
You know
not
what I
saying
mean?
that. I'm not saying that they ever deem me a liability. I'm just saying that's how it may have been viewed, not by them, but just period. I don't think that it
Yeah.
was a blessing for us to go to jail. Um,
I don't think it, but I don't think that. But through our struggle, I don't think it was a blessing for us to go through slavery. But it happened.
absolutely.
But it happened. I don't think
Okay,
it was a
so
blessing for either one of us in the South or the North or wherever to be lynched. But the truth is, it happened. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that with that being said, I think that we should look more so as how can we create blessings out of potential liabilities in our kids. You know what I mean? Because it's so strange, man. In our family, everybody tells each other before they leave, we love you, I love you, we love you. We make sure that, I go to some family, I see some family, man, they never say that when they leave each other. They're always looking for fault in the next sibling. You know what I mean? I'm not saying we haven't had our differences and our struggles as a family, but in the end, man, we know that we love each other, we can depend on each other. To me, that's what an asset, that's what a blessing is, when I know that I can depend on you, and my parents know that they could depend on me up until that last day. Because it wouldn't be so many nursing home filled, man. It's a lot of nursing homes are full right now. Homelessness is at all-time high. And we're talking about homelessness with mothers and children, and mothers and fathers with their children out there. So I don't huh? Okay. Yeah, but I don't know. That's just my take, man. I don't think any of us procreated with the intention of creating uh a liability. And I think that we were genuinely love. You know what I mean? Or thought, or so to speak, or smitten, or however you want to call it, or whatever the term that you want to use. And when a child came, man, I just think that we were so caught off guard about how to take care of them, and that we just needed help. And the system didn't let us fully take care of them, because I couldn't be in the household in order for my child to get health care. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's a double-edged sword, man. That's all I got, James.
all right, Mr. Hayes, we got Mr. Hayes, Sasha, and then look at the time, so we're gonna wrap this up and go from there.
No, but basically, I understand what Shaheem is saying, but that would be an argument for a later date. And the reason why I'm saying that is because what he's saying is right. If you know you don't have the right financial or education and stuff like that, don't bring them kids into a doggy dog hell of a world on a who knows. I get that, but that's not really addressing what the topic at hand. But maybe that's a discussion that we can have, a topic we can have on this show for a later date. But yeah, basically it's pretty much like I've been saying. I mean, all you can do is the best you can do. It's anything in life. I don't care whether it's basketball, football, your job, working out, raising children, and what have you. All you can do is the best you can do, and just put your trust in God from there, and just see what happens. Because like, there's no guarantee that they're gonna take care of you. There's no guarantee that they're not gonna take care of you. But you know the you're the farmer. You know the seed you planted. You know how you nurtured that seed, and you do the best. And you do the best that you can do. And like about the love stuff. All the way up until the time I went to prison, I always hugged and kissed my nephew, my daughter, and everybody. And I always told them I love them. Right? It's something that's not going on in some of my grandkids' house, because even my 14-year-old grandson, I still hug him, kiss him on his forehead, and tell him I love him. Ain't looking at like grandfathers, weird as hell. I mean, but but that's how I always done my kids, and I'm not gonna stop, because yeah, it's weird, but it's something that regardless of what, they need to hear. They need to hear.
All right,
Kevin,
Sasha
I was
Mansion.
laughing, but you were so right. It's missing. A lot of children do not get hugs, do not get that touch, and aren't told on a regular basis that they're loved by their family and their parents. It's the strangest thing. Like, I didn't grow up like that. I always hugged and kissed my parents before I went to bed. Like, that was our thing. Like, we hugged, a couple times. Like, when I got home, I might get a hug. When I see them now, I'm grown. The first thing they do is give me a hug when they see me. So and then we wonder why some of our children and our communities are so disconnected.
Sasha Manning.
Oh man, I see so many topics coming out of this conversation.
Oh yeah.
It's really really dope. Yep, I love what Shakim was bringing up about relationships, and I am so happy to hear that from you. I have no idea how old you are, but at least I know for a fact that you are going
I
to
think he about
consider.
25. I speak for him, he about 25. So.
I know seriously you're going to take having children and having a family with a serious note. You're going to know who you're going to get with. You're going to know their DNA. You're going to comprehend what they're bringing to your family and what family you're going to create. You're going to get that together. And I love that, because that is what derives from when I say anchor. When I say anchor yourself to your culture and your religion, because in Quran, in scriptures, it says that with specificity. A lot of people don't comprehend. They just kind of take Bible and Quran and other scriptural books, other religious books, as something with ideas that float in theology, but it's actually connected to science. And it's not just a mom and a dad loving each other and getting with each other, but actually comprehending on the DNA level, what does it mean to have and procreate from this connection? Can this connection procreate a baby, or is it going to be a barren situation because the health is not right or the DNA connection is not right? So that is another conversation, but it's so important, because why? From those disconnects come an unbalanced child that then is not resourced or provided resources to make the balance happen. Then you're calling them a liability. And whose fault was that in the first place? Right? We can't blame the innocent child that come into situations like dyslexia, spectrum issues, crack babies, so to speak, that dealt with a whole era that also had children with other people, that brought that down into other situations, that then you're wondering why they're making decisions the way they're doing. And you're dealing with malnutrition, and you're dealing with awful environments. Yes, there is huge disconnects. Like I mentioned before, I see these children running around and they'll give each other a one-arm hug. And that one-arm hug is like the forearm, and that's it. And that was love. That's not real. That's not a connection. And I'm seeing that adults doing that to children. And why? Because they're disconnected to themselves. So how can they connect to each other? A mother and a father can't tell the truth about their growing up to a child is a huge disservice, because what is your experience for? But to share it and to be able to make sure the child either chooses not to go the mistakes that you did, or choose to go your mistakes and not make the same mistakes, or whatever the case may be. But if we don't create these environments, we're not dealing with the real problem, and we don't process it like Shakim just articulated, to say what is actually happening here, what are we really talking about here, then we can't even have the resolve to create a solution to address these issues. So right on, Shakim. And thank you everyone for great contribution on the anchor side, because all of it matters. And I love how Reverend Clifton mentioned liability aspects placed in a child versus a child being liable. That is really a difference, because what is that child perceiving? If they're receiving the bad habit to become inconsiderate, not be a part of the environment, not see their place in and their role in it, then yes, you're going to find that they will destroy, because that is the environment that is created. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Briefly, I want to say this, and I want to, give Aisha the opportunity, or Kevin, because you both have brought out the story. Kevin, you brought out the story of Kadisha and the mother being taken care of after the death of her husband. The key component is after the death of her husband. Aisha, in what you wrote in the chat or on Facebook, I mean, also, I'm sorry because it went off. Mine went off. Let me go back to that. What you wrote also says the honor to express itself in courtesy, thoughtfulness, and kind deeds. Any parent, especially a widowed parent, we're going back to the death. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it after death or we shouldn't do it while we're alive. I do anything for my parents. I just recently came from going to see my father. So I want to cherish you while you're alive, not mourn you. I don't want to wish that I did more. I want to cherish you while you're here. So I agree that I think that I agree that it's a blessing. A child can be a blessing and a liability, depending on, as Mr. Clifton said, it's in the eyes of the person that's actually looking at the child. Because and it's one of those situations where there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, because a child can be a blessing. A child is always a blessing. It's a blessing. To be able to create life within itself, it's a blessing. To be able to create something from you, it's a blessing. We, as Sasha and Manti have said, and Sasha has said, we kind of look at it from a worldly aspect of saying that, because we have to take care of it, we're responsible for it, that's a liability. Some say that a liability is anything that takes from you, whether it's energy, time, money, whatever. And then that is one of the world's definitions of a liability. So in that definition of the world, and the God tell you don't live of the world, don't be of the world, but of the world, it's a liability. I love what Manny and Sasha said. I think that every child should leave the household. I think they should leave the nest. That don't mean you have to go clear across country. That don't mean you got to move out of state. That means I want you to have your own and understand and get to obtain the responsibility of paying your own bills and running your own household and experience those things. I want you to experience that, because as we all know, we're not going to live forever, and if you never experienced that, if something happened to me and you've been in my household all these years, then I can't expect you to just jump right into that. That was another topic, another time where we're saying we leave ladies out here, you ladies out here, and we take care of things. And then when we're gone, we expect you to step up and take care of what you was never taught of how to take care of things. Same thing with your children. You have to teach them. And sometimes experience is the best teacher, so allow them to get their own. Sasha said, it might move next door. My uncle lived across the street from my grandmother. My cousin lived across the street from his mother. And they always go over there and make sure they're okay. That was, that's a given. But they had their own. My uncles, myself, if my father said go to the store, if the grass need cut, we're gonna cut the grass. we're gonna do what we got to do. That's honor and respecting our parents. That's what that is. But that don't mean to honor and respect my parents that I have to live in a household with them. Mr. Clifton said that we're the only race of a class of people that say you have to get out at 18 years old. Um, I feel that, but what that also shows me is the people that saying that may view them kids as a liability and not a blessing. So when people say, "Hey, I don't view my child as a blessing," you got to listen to what they're saying. If they're saying, "Hey, at 18, you got to get out of here," they may view them as a liability. That's a possibility. And I saying that's the case. That's a possibility. Generations. Our generation has dropped the ball a lot. We have changed how we do things. We have changed, and that may be because our generation is having kids at a younger rate. So it's younger people raising people and not getting the full thing. But we stopped a lot of things. It's our generation that don't. Our grandparents and our parents knew to do certain things, and now we're not doing it. And then we blame it on, well, this is what they're doing today. We can't go with what they're doing today. We got to go with what works. That's just my opinion. So that's my overall opinion. I feel that a child can be, it's a blessing. It ain't gonna can be, is a blessing. But some people look at them as liability because of the definition, the world's definition of what a liability is. People can easily slide it into the term liability. Any last words? We have to be brief before we actually close out the show for tonight. I definitely appreciate everybody's input. I definitely appreciate everybody respecting everything and everything. Any last words? Anything anybody want to address before we close the show?
Yeah,
Yes.
what Mr. Clifton said was big, because even in the Islamic culture, the daughters never leave the house unless they're getting married. They could work, they could do whatever it is they need to do, but the daughters never leave the home until they get married. We are the only people that does that. Get out, you're old, get out, or even more than your son. No one really leaves the house until they get married. We are really the only ones that does that. But again, but see, he said something else about being hanged and all that stuff. We've been robbed of all that. We as a people has been robbed of all of that. So now it's time for us to do some introspection, go off into our history, and get back into doing what our culture requires. What was stolen from us. We give us our legacy back, our stolen legacy. So that's basically. Go ahead, Sheree. I know I ain't gonna go too much longer, but go ahead, Sheree. You go ahead and
I was just gonna say, James, maybe we can just based on kind of along the lines what Kevin was just saying, one of our topics, can we do a topic called The Village? Where is it? Who is it? What happened to it? And how are we gonna get it back?
I love that. And I just want to quickly interject that I disagree wholeheartedly. I watch all the time how other ethnic backgrounds separate their children from their household. I think there's a huge difference in the how they do it. But all day long, I'm around people who are setting their children up in their own spaces, 18, 19, 22, 24. They will pay for a place for those children to live in, send the bill to my house, but they're going there, or they will have a different address. So how we do it as, a culture is a huge part of the problem. And then even in that, again, the worldly sense or terminology that does become a liability. But I just want to say, yeah, I disagree. I'm not sitting my son outside. He's not required to go out and fend for himself. And I watch all day long how other ethnic backgrounds will place their children somewhere. They're doing it responsibly. They're taking care of them. They're taking on the responsibility, being accountable for them. but they do have to get up and go as well.
So
Um,
I'm on the same lines as you. My daughter's 27 and my son is 14, and we all live together. And I had a conversation with her because I grew up where, yes, when you got a certain age, you went and you found your own place and you worked it out, right? You did the struggle. And I was like, I don't, and it wasn't because I had to leave, right? It was a thing like, we have our own job, so we gonna go get our own place, right? But for her, I was like, I don't want that. I don't want her to go, she has a great job. I don't want her to go live in a neighborhood because that's all she can afford on her salary, and
And
just to
then, but
say
like
on my
Mr.
own.
Jones said, right, that becomes a part of the problem. And I think we spoke about this before, like we often, a place where we fail in parenting is we often try to be what we needed for our children, right? I can think of many other, like I said, situations, backgrounds of ethnic people, and their culture is to be out 15, 17, that was once upon a time, but economics dictate a little something different. So I think it's all in the how it gets done. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. I stick to my overall thought. My son is both an asset and a liability.
okay.
Bless.
Sasha Manti.
I want to agree with Aisha in saying that it's not only melanated people that will say get out by 18. It's a cultural transfer. Usually they always say, there's a certain type of species that if you don't let the young leave, they will kill the young. And some other cultures that literally they have to get out or they're not going to make it. They're not going to survive. They're not going to do it. And some of them could leave at 14, 13, 15. And some of them leave at 18 because there was a time where the laws are saying in order to do anything as a quote unquote adult, you have to be 18. And if you're an adult, you're going to have to get out of the house. So therefore they redefine that as the age of getting out. And then they further support that with orphanages and foster care that's saying, okay, by 18, you need to find a place and figure it out, leaving so many of the youth homeless. I am telling you, is not till even up to 34, I would say. Not to say they living with you or whatever the case is, however you arrange it, they still need grown up advice, guidance, because they're 34 the first time, they're 33 the first time, they're 32 the first time, they're experiencing life as an adult for the first time, and they still need our guidance. So you can't leave them alone. If it's me and I have my own place and my child is getting older and I'm like, you know what, it's time for me to get a bigger place. You're going to go half on me. You're going to have a space in it until you can figure out what you're going to do. And I'm going to have my space and we're going to figure it out. However, I'm that dreamer. I'm that person. Sorry. I want
That's
to hang
okay.
out.
That's
I want to
okay.
hang out with my children. Sorry. They have to tell me time to go home, mom. They have to, I want to hang out with my friends. They're going to have to tell me that. I'm going to have to figure that out.
You'll get there. We're at 10 minutes, Mr.
Okay. Let me say
Jones.
this.
Over.
I want to say that as I don't know who said it because we had so many different comments, but there are a lot of topics out there. Just think Sasha Manti, Shakim all said that, but where's the village? Where has it gone and how do we get it back? That will be next week's topic. I'm also looking at it. We go to. I wrote down several topics from this show, but I want to say this to you that I think that if the child is staying, and I said child because you're acting as I'm not acting as a child, but you are still willing to be taught. And you're 20 something years old, and I'm teaching you finance, and I'm still teaching you, save your money, and you're going to school, and every parent should want their child to move out of the house when they're able to buy their own house. That should be the goal. But in the process of trying to buy your own house, their credit should be built. They should be able to save money. The debt to credit ratio should be in a great place. Should be a lot of factors that goes on in order for the child to be able to go out there and gain the next level of experience. But I'm saying if they're not moving in that direction, you just staying here, you're not saving money, you're not building your credit, you're not doing anything, then that's where the liability aspect comes in at. That's where the thoughts of the liability comes in at. Thoughts. I'm not saying they are, but thoughts. So I think that, as you said, Aisha, as Sasha Mendes said, I think that you need to get out at some point and get your own to at least have the experience of life, because your parents are not going to always be around to give you a place to stay. So I think that we need to take them to that. Okay, even if I'm paying for it, I feel that if the parents are paying for it, then they're still enabling that child. Even though they're saying, "Hey, you got to get out of my space," because we also hear, growing up, that our mothers say can't be two grown women in the household. But guess what? The flip side of that coin, we don't consider this. You don't hear this much. The consideration for this isn't that much. The man feels the same way. Can't be two men in the household. You know what I'm saying? Because it's only one man in the household. There's only one king in the household and one queen in the household. You never seen a castle. I've never seen a castle with two kings or four kings and three queens, in one castle. I haven't seen that. But I'm saying that if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, I want them there so I can continue to groom you and get you to where when you step out, you're not going to step out and start struggling. So I would ask everybody, blessing, blessing or liability. Now this is how we're going to end the show. One word: blessing or liability. Aisha, blessing or liability.
Blessing.
Kevin Hayes.
Both.
Okay, that's option C. Cherie.
Blessings and liabilities. Little broke best friends.
So both. At times, both. Okay, Shakim.
Yes.
Shakim, we got one jumped off, but I'm gonna scream at her in the background for everybody. But Shakim, go ahead.
Blessed.
Okay. Sasha Mandy.
Blessings, and I'm saying for him, blessings.
Okay. Mr. Clifton.
Blessing.
Hey, Felicia. Blessing or jumping off the show don't mean nothing. Blessing or a liability. Oh, yours are a blessing. Did everybody hear that? Okay, blessing. So with that, we're gonna end the show. We will resume next week. Topic will be, where did the village go? Where is the village? Where has it gone? And how do we get it back? Thank you everybody for coming. Have a good night. Remember, all other people, I need to know when your availability is. I am stopping the live stream. I am stopping the recording. Where's that at?